All right, so good morning and thank you for coming. I saw an awful lot of red wine being consumed last night, so it's really lovely to see so many people here this morning. The first thing I would love you to do is to have a look around you, and you're going to go, oh God, it's interactive, get her off the stage, don't want to do this, too early for this. And I want you to find one person in front of you, next to you, behind you, who you don't know, introduce yourself. That's your one job. One person. One person you don't know. Here's one. You two, perfect. All right. I did say one, not 15, so just keep it as one person you don't know. Come on in, you folks just arriving. Come and grab a seat. All right, so we're going to just play a very quick game of true or false, which is about Tasmania, which is where I'm from. Who's lucky enough to have been to Tassie before? Heaps of you. Wonderful. So I want you to make eye contact with that one person you just met. Have a quick look at them. Where are they? There they are. Good. Excellent. Okay, so when I'm going to ask you for a true or false, and I want you to turn to that person and screech to them, true or false, depending on what you think the answer is. There's only 3 questions, all right? First one, true or false? Everyone in Tasmania knows each other. That might be my next question. The answer is not actually true, although the number of times I've heard someone say to me, oh, you're from Tassie. Do you know Joe? Joe, he's a mechanic in Tassie, and they actually expect me to know them, and sometimes I actually do. So, you know, we do know a lot of people in Tassie, which relates to the story I'm going to tell you. Second, true or false? Find your partner. Everyone in Tasmania is related. Fortunately, it is definitely false, although we're lucky we have a good convict history and there's people from all over the world in Tassie now, which is lucky. Last question, third one, true or false? Everyone from Tasmania you've ever met is truly fabulous. Yes. True. Oh, a couple of false ones. If you've had a few not so positive experiences with Tasmanians, I urge you to come back and try again, because there are some wonderful people in Tassie. So the story I wanted to tell you about today, it starts off with me having this moment that I'm sure many of you can relate to. So I wanted to ask you if you have had this moment that before I'd experienced it, I would have thought it's just a stupid cliche that people talk about. But have you had that moment where you feel like you are being moved forward to do something in a manner that is completely out of your control? It's like you're being propelled by some, I don't know what you want to call it, by some higher force, and it's pushing you in a direction. And if you'd asked someone next to you at the time, oh, I've got this idea, should I do this? What do you think? What are the risks? What's involved? If you'd asked someone next to you, they would have gone, you're crazy, don't do it. But for some reason you do it anyway, and you feel like that was exactly what was meant to happen right at that point in time. Has anyone had an experience along those lines? Yeah. So I had this experience on the 4th of January 2013 when I was sitting at home babysitting for a friend. These massive bushfires had started in Tassie the night before. And I was watching Facebook, seeing all these posts come up, seeing all these messages, listening to the radio, hearing these people in such distress calling the ABC. And I had this moment, and I can't even tell you what happened for about 30 seconds. But the next thing I know, I'd created a Facebook page, I'd called it something, and I was on the phone to the ABC saying, I want to try and help. Can you tell everyone else who wants to help to come to this page? And I feel like it is also a cliche to say the rest is history, but that is exactly what the case is. The next 2 years, up until this point, have been an absolute whirlwind for me. So what I wanted to start off with is just to show you a little video that summarises a lot of the stuff I would talk about. It gives it to you in a nice, neat little package. It's a short edit of the Australian story that aired about what I was up to. It aired about a year ago. And so I'll get Peter to pop that up for me. The video isn't too long, and it'll just describe basically how this all started and give you a couple of stories that describe what the Tasmanian community was doing during this time and what my role essentially was. After the video has played, I'm going to come back and try and summarise the last 2 years for you in numbers. I thought that's the easiest way to try and summarise what's been happening in numbers.
Hello, I'm Caroline Jones. It's been said there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Tonight's program is about a psychology student and a brainwave that became a phenomenon. As Tasmania's terrifying bushfires took hold in January, Mel Irons set up a Facebook page to connect people who wanted to help each other. In a matter of moments, she was at the centre of a social media whirlwind that would have far-reaching effects. This is her story.
It's okay, make sure you keep your guard up. Left, right, upper, upper, that's one.
Mel's got this amazing ability to just have a go at things.
Richo, elbows all the way up first.
It's almost a childlike optimism that things will be okay. Or on the flip side, how bad can things be?
The job of the leaders is to quickly read the signs, be on top of the game so that you...
She's one of these people who can inspire the best in other people, and she does that through her boot camp in a fitness world, but she does that just with life in general with other people.
It's been a disastrous day in Tasmania where soaring temperatures have seen bushfires tear.
When she was working on the Tassie Fires Facebook page, she wasn't sleeping more than a couple of hours each night. That doesn't really surprise me for Mel.
It reached over 2 million separate people. It went Tassie-wide, Australia-wide, and we were getting emails and things from people all over the world. The reach of the page was just mind-blowing.
Social media mobilised the population to want to help and to do something, and I think it overwhelmed any other form of official communication.
There were businesses that were potentially going to go under, and through the work that Mel and other volunteers did, they managed to save them.
My life flashed before my eyes when I was thinking of all the things that could have gone wrong. We could have been really getting in the way of the emergency services. I can't begin to describe how this has changed my life. I've been running my fitness business and I've been doing my PhD without sort of really knowing why. I remember on about the 4th night of the fires turning to my partner at about 3 a.m. and just saying, I think I was kind of meant to do this. This all started for me on the 4th of January.
Tasmania is in the grip of a bushfire emergency.
On the Friday, I was already listening to ABC, watching the news. I was constantly refreshing the Tasmanian Fire Service website, keeping an eye on it all, and I was here actually babysitting for a good friend of mine.
We had Hobart's hottest night on record, and we also had dry lightning activity right throughout the southern half of the state. And the forecast presented to us on the Thursday afternoon were for much worse conditions again for the Friday. And by mid-morning, fires were absolutely out of control.
Let the spot fires on the grass there.
When fires are burning out of control, our principal priority becomes getting warnings out to people and letting them know what's happening. We can't just say it's all going to be the website. We can't say it's all going to be the emergency alert telephone system. We've got to use all those approaches, and we've got to use things as basic as people door knocking.
This is absolutely unbelievable. Look at it going up. Look at it bloody going up. Look at it going up.
It was moving so quickly and it was so big that their only option was to run for the water.
I don't know if you can see down there, people have evacuated to the water. They've got their families just so they don't get burnt and everything.
We heard stories of mothers grabbing their children and running and jumping into the water. They're in the water up to their chins watching their town burn. It's unfathomable what that must have been like.
There's a fire brigade.
There were people on Facebook posting things, offering things, and I thought, well, great, I can offer my backyard. If anyone's got a dog that they need looked after, I can do that. And I just thought there's got to be more that I can do than just offering my backyard. So there were even more posts coming up about people searching for friends and family, and I just thought, right, there's my bossy wanting to organise personality came through, and I thought, here's something I can actually do. I can coordinate all of this. So I started to set up a page, and it was funny because I'm really not a Facebook person, and I was thinking, do I set up a page or a group? And I was on the phone already to ABC local radio saying I've set up this page.
And Melanie's called in from Mount Nelson. Basically created a page called Tassie Fires We Can Help.
The ABC was great. They said, yep, we'll put the word out for you, which they did. Within about, I think it was about an hour and a half, there were about 3,000 people already following the page, and the activity was just insane, just post after post after post.
It almost bypassed the official channels. Well, it did. It essentially became a way for volunteers to communicate directly with people that needed help.
I've got a Bachelor of Psychology with honours, and I'm into the very final, fingers crossed, stages of my PhD at the moment. And so psychology has always been something I've been very interested in, and I found myself really early on recognising all the amazing things from a psychological perspective that were coming out through this page. There's an oyster farm called Cameron's, which is a hatchery. So you eat an oyster in Australia, it's got a 1 in 2 chance that it grew up as a baby at Cameron's hatchery. The hatchery didn't burn down, but it had no power, so they need power to pump the water so that the oysters can get fed and oxygen and all that.
Basically, we were running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and Phil drove past and said, "Shit, what do you need?"
I actually got a call from a local called Phil, who's an oyster farmer down at Denali, and he's extraordinary because he lost his house and his car and all his possessions, and he rang me saying the hatchery's about to go under, we need to help them out.
We were confronted with this, and we knew that everything we were doing was time critical.
Hour by hour, fish were dying. The ambient temperatures were so high. So we stood to lose all of our livestock. Around about $2.5 million worth of stock, around 100 million individual animals. Our oysters could survive 36 to 48 hours out of water. That's not long enough for a bureaucratic institution to make decisions. So realistically, it had to be a private venture, and that's where Mel came in. It was fantastic.
Hey Phil, it's Mel again. How you going?
Yeah, Mel.
Said, Mel, I need this and I need this.
Okay, all right.
And her being able to deal with all the logistics and coordination from her place meant that I can actually get on with saving our livestock.
Yeah, I've put up about 3 generators, electrical engineers and electricians for you.
Thank you.
We asked for something, it just arrived.
We had a whole bunch of electricians and electrical engineers either on boats or getting through with police escort, and the trucks with the generators on got through to the farm with police escort as well. And they lost only about 10% of the oysters. By Sunday, we were really understanding the full scale of what was on our hands. People were still sleeping in their cars at this point. So many tourists stuck, and the food supplies were running low and water was running out, and as I was told, very few trucks and emergency service vehicles with supplies were getting through, and it was just chaos in the first few days.
Social media has been a tool that many have been using. There's Facebook posts going up all the time from people saying, this house is still standing, we're not sure about this business, has anybody seen this person, has anybody seen my pet?
The food bank were collecting a lot of donations as well, which was fabulous because they had refrigerated trucks. Ed Gowden from the food bank was telling me about the sort of stuff that's needed because he was able to get through with his big trucks with police escorts, and they were asking for really specific things.
It's great to give people food, but I give them cans of food. How are they going to open these cans of food? And getting in touch with Mel, next minute she puts it on Facebook that we need can openers. Within an hour, I had 15 boxes of can openers.
It was the most extraordinary thing to be in a position to ask for pretty much anything and my wish would get granted. Whatever I kind of needed, there would be someone there who could get it done for me. On the Monday, something much bigger than we'd achieved so far happened. A guy called Andrew had been down to the peninsula in his boat.
We just went out yesterday and there's people in trouble. There's guys that haven't slept for 3 days because they're fighting fires. There's people that have been, out of water, out of power. They've had their food in their fridges going off and they're out of non-perishables. So yeah, there's guys out there that need help, so we go and help.
Hey Andrew, how you going? I put a call out saying if anyone's got a boat or got supplies, meet here at this time tomorrow and the boats will head off. Yep, 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
It was flat out the entire day. They had hundreds of people turning up, vehicles from all shapes and sizes, people who turning up, dropping off donations that probably valued more than the cars that they arrived in a lot of the time.
I rang the SES before I first put that post up saying, we're seeing a need to get stuff in, I don't want to get in your way, what are you guys doing, am I doing the right thing here? And she said, look, we cannot condone what you're doing, I cannot give you permission, but it seems to be working, good job. She sort of said a few things like that and I was like, okay, good.
We had 2 boatloads of food, water, blankets. You guys able to help us out with that?
Yeah.
In the end, we're guessing that around about 35 boats turned up over the course of that first day and then even into the next day, and they just went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with hundreds of people being involved.
It's fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. I had a complete ute load come out of one boat and it's just not stopping. It's wonderful. The Aussie spirit is alive.
I felt like a complete idiot that I hadn't anticipated all these massive risks that could really affect me really quite drastically. People could have crashed their boats, people could have got injured, they could have hurt themselves, even just picking up boxes and moving gas tanks. Even just thinking about it now, I just think, ugh, just risky, risk all over it. But I would do it all again in a heartbeat.
It was inspiring to be Premier of a state that responded with extraordinary compassion and generosity. Tasmanians rallied around those affected, like Mel Irons and her Facebook page, and those who responded to the calls for help through social media.
At the moment, we're in the process of developing a whole-of-government emergency website. One of the keys will be how do we work better with some of the people in the affected community in terms of communicating information, because communicating information regardless of how you do it is extremely important.
I'll keep doing what I'm doing until I kind of run out of things to do, I think. And I'll try and finish my PhD. If my supervisor's watching this, I promise I'll finish it.
It's interesting how hard it is still to watch things like that. Has anyone experienced a bushfire before? It's pretty tough and it really sticks with you, and I don't usually play that video because I find it tough even now to watch it. So, this is not actually a story about Facebook. I wasn't a Facebook person before this all happened. I was the last of my friends to get involved in social media. It's not about the social media tool itself. It's about the community coming together and them all having a platform to actually connect together. So for those of you that might not have a Facebook account, you might not be on Twitter, all that sort of stuff, it doesn't actually matter. This story is just a story about community, and the tool that was the best one at the time for me to connect the community just happened to be social media. It just happened to be Facebook. So I've learnt an awful lot about social media since that time. I had a lot of little stuff-ups that if I'd known a bit more about it, I would have done better beforehand. But anyway, you live and learn. So I wanted to now move on to just telling you a few numbers about this page. I talk in the Australian Story about my PhD. I was doing a psychology PhD on something completely different that I started in 2008, and then I completely fell off the bandwagon with that when the fires happened. I didn't look at it for 6 months, and then I went crawling back to my supervisor's office and said, look, I know I'm only about 6 months off finishing this first PhD, but I just don't care about it. This has all happened, and I've got this amazing data from the page. I've put together a bunch of questionnaires. I've got 700 replies back. I'm really interested in how people can work together in a disaster. What do volunteers do? How can we manage spontaneous volunteers? I want to change my thesis topic. And the university thought I was absolutely mental, and there was lots of discussions, and we got 2 new supervisors on board, and they gave me a 6-month extension, but they eventually said, yes, we can see the value in you changing, and so they let me change. So it's been, I changed topics about 18 months ago, so it is a huge relief to stand here and say that I submitted it about 4 weeks ago. It's really, yes. It's sort of not over yet. You've got to, wait 3 months for the examiners to get back to you. But I feel like this didn't feel like it was just a flash in the pan and I did one nice amount of volunteering and service for my community. It felt really important to me to continue on and actually research it. So a lot of the numbers that I'm giving you today are actually from the research that I've been doing the last year and a half. All right, here we go. 20,860. That is the number of fans the page had at its absolute peak. So for a state the size of Tassie, I think that's pretty cool. Almost 21,000 people following the page every day. 858. That's the number of different websites on the internet referring people specifically to this page for information, including the ABC, the Mercury, our state newspaper. 858 other websites linking back to us. 34,836,611. So almost 35 million. That's the number of impressions of the page that appeared on people's computers, phones, tablets around the world. So that's just a little amalgamation of different posts. An impression is every time one of those little posts appears on someone's computer somewhere in the world. So 35 million times content flashed to people. I'll just leave this picture up because I like it. It looks like I'm drinking straight scotch here. It's not. It's tea that I didn't touch. These are the only 2 photos I have of me over that period. That was my little HQ sitting in my office at home. 2,826,273. So almost 3 million. That's the number of separate, unique visitors to the page in the first year of the page's life. So 3 million unique people coming to the page to get information. 4.3. That's how often I was posting. On average, every 4.3 minutes for the first 2 weeks of the bushfires. That equated to approximately 12.5 hours a day in front of the page for the first 2 weeks for me. Funnily enough, I'd actually taken a week off work. My job's a fitness business. I'd taken a week off work to finish my first PhD. So I had this beautiful, clear week in which to study, and I ended up being on Facebook for the whole time. Try and explain that to your supervisor before it all comes out in the wash. almost 3,000% is how much my phone bill increased for the month of January. It was about a $3,500 phone bill, but thankfully, thanks to the power of Facebook, someone from Telstra saw me posting about how amusing that was, and the phone bill got wiped, which was quite extraordinary. They did that for quite a few volunteers. 0. The number of showers I had in the first week of the fires. You know when you say you're busy, I didn't know what busy was until that happened. And if I stepped away from my computer for more than about 20 seconds, I'd have another 20 emails. My phone was going flat even while it was being plugged in the charger. I had my best friend and my partner and my parents feeding me food that I could eat with one hand because there wasn't enough time to use 2 hands to eat what I was eating. So needless to say, I'm working on my team for next time because I don't want to do it by myself again. So 0 showers. So any footage you see of me, you know that I'm the great unwashed at that time. 139. So one of my analyses, I've looked at every single post I put up for the first year of the page's life, and there were almost 3,000 posts that I put up on the main page. So lots and lots of comments that go up all over the page, but as far as the big posts that I put out that go to everyone, I analysed the first 5 days worth of posts. So these next numbers come from that analysis. So 139, that's the number of people who put their personal contact details up on Facebook in that first week because they recognised that even though it was risky, that was the best way for people in need and other volunteers to contact them. So the normal rules of social media and privacy, people just threw them to the wind and they were willing to put themselves out there, take the risk, because they knew that was the fastest way to help people. 22, the number of my posts in the first 5 days that were specifically geared towards telling people to just relax, calm down, chill out, stop rushing into the area. We would see what volunteering was needed and just take it easy because everyone got a little bit too excited. 71 posts contained what I would consider examples of extreme generosity. So someone from Melbourne, she just jumped in her car, she came down for 2 nights, she came down on the Spirit, she went straight to the food bank, she just said, what can I do to help? She did 2 days of service and then she drove back home again and back to work. So in my analysis, 71 posts like that I look at now and just think, oh my gosh, I cannot believe people do this sort of stuff for us. 69, the number of different fundraisers that had already started in the first 5 days. I had a great phone call with the Red Cross after maybe a week, and they said they were just flabbergasted by the number of different, separate, unique fundraisers that had been created. We had the big ones that were done by the radio stations and Mona and things like that, but they said they had hundreds of smaller fundraisers, maybe raising $60 or $600, but they said they'd never seen anything quite like it as far as scale of fundraisers, which, considering as money is the most important thing we need, I think that's so exciting. 50 of my posts were directly related to looking for someone who was missing, so trying to find details of someone who hadn't been heard from for 24 to 48 hours. 44 posts contained local businesses who were offering professional services for free or at a vast discount. So 44 local businesses making a difference just in the first few days. 53 of my posts specifically saying what was not needed. So again, crowd control, trying to manage the emotions of everyone involved, trying to get them to gear their efforts in a really useful way rather than in a way that would get in the way of the emergency services. 10 seconds. I was getting an email every 10 seconds for, I reckon, the first month. And the backlog of emails, I committed to myself to reply to every single one of them. It took me ages, but I did reply to every single email that came in. I think that's one of the critical things in an emergency is volunteers want to help and they want that, they want to feel like they're making a difference. And if they contact an official organisation or a group and there isn't a job for them to do, either they go and make up something and it becomes more problematic, or they just get lost and they never get involved. So I made it a real commitment to make everyone feel appreciated for what they did. $1 million, that's the estimate from 2 local farmers that were running a hay drive. That's what they estimate was the value of donated hay that came in the first few days, over $1 million. 2 is the number of government officials that came up to my house on day 3 of the fires because they rang me and they said, we're getting the bushfire recovery unit underway and we want to know what you're doing and we've been monitoring you and we want to work together and we want to tell you what you're doing. And I sort of flicked my hair on the phone. I said, I'm far too busy to come and have a meeting with you in town. If you want to talk to me, you have to come to my house. And they did. Remember the 0 showers thing? It was during that time. But our local government was really fantastic at recognising that this volunteer group was something to be harnessed and worked with rather than squashed. So we worked together really well over the recovery period. 2, if I had to summarise my 2 main jobs, it was as an information broker, bringing everyone to one platform where they could get all the information in one place. And my second main job I describe as providing psychological first aid. So providing support and encouragement, making people feel connected. The situation with communications was so bad that people couldn't make phone calls or send text messages because cell towers were jammed. But because of the low bandwidth required by social media, even if people couldn't send an email, they could still get on Facebook or they could still send a tweet. So I had this really privileged position of being connected to people even when they couldn't connect in any other way. So those were my 2 main jobs. So there's lots of, really quite amazing numbers, and my whole thesis is full of quantitative stats that are all very fascinating. But the most important number by far was definitely the number one. And I just wanted to mention just a couple of quick stories to finish off with about all those individual people that came forward, which is what made me even able to do anything. I was sitting at home on my computer for pretty much 2 weeks straight. I only left to go and do interviews because I recognised that getting the word out about the page was my most important job. I was sitting at home for 2 weeks. I wasn't out there in amongst it doing what all these people were doing. And if I hadn't had all these individuals stepping forward to do something, I would have been completely powerless. So I'm the least important part in this whole equation. So 1 is the number of beer brewers who was watching the TV, decided he wanted to help, got on his boat, got a swag, went and camped down at Dunalley next to the pub, said to the pub owner, "You look like pretty much it. This is the evacuation hub for the entire peninsula. What can I do?" And he stayed for 2 weeks. Then at the end of the 2 weeks, he just got back on his boat, went back to work, and that was the end of that. No media coverage for him, but he was my contact at the pub. So I would talk to him about what was needed. I would put it on Facebook about what was needed. We would get boats, we would get police escort. It would go back to him at the pub. So he was sort of my ears on the ground. So that's just one person making such a difference. Another number 1, a local farmer, Dimity, recognising that animals cannot survive for much more than 24 hours without food, and recognising that something had to be done immediately. So she rang another farmer, a pig farmer, Gabby, and between the two of them, they started the hay drive. So across Tasmania, there were 6 points that you could go and donate hay, and Cressy Transport cancelled all their bookings for a week and said, "We're just going to move hay for you guys." So the one farmer, recognising how quickly things needed to go, one phone call, that huge hay drive that occurred. Another one, Tearing, a local vet in South Hobart, saying animals are going to need to be euthanized. There's all this wildlife that are really burnt. There's pets with burnt paws. Who's doing anything about this? She rang government and said, the Department of Primary Industries and Water, and said, "What can we do to help?" Government said, "Look, you can, put in a submission and we'll figure this out." And 4 days later, she thought, no, this is too slow. So she hired a caravan, dumped it next to the pub, rang a couple of her other vet friends, and they rang an emergency vet clinic for 3 weeks that ran completely on volunteer supplies and volunteer time of local vets. 1, Gemma, a random girl who decided to wear, I've actually got a photo of it. I'm going to go through to this second last slide. There's Gemma. Decided to go to work in a lion suit and tell people to give her money for looking so ridiculous at work. She raised over $600 straight to the Red Cross. Amazing. So many stories like Gemma's for fundraising. Another one, a girl called Claire who was watching all this on social media, and she rang Huggies and she said, "Major fires in Tassie, you might not even really have heard of us, but could you help in any way?" And they stick a post up saying, "Sure, we'll send 83 pallets of goods to the food bank for you," and then the food bank can distribute it. One phone call from one girl who had an idea. This was probably my favourite post, and it was the first time that I sort of got overly emotional during the first week of the fires. Someone sent me an email saying the most incredible thing has just happened here at the Red Cross at the blood bank. Giving blood, there's an age limit for giving blood, and an old guy had shuffled into the Red Cross up in Devonport, and he said, "I'd like to give blood, thanks." And the nurse who had emailed me said to him, "Look, I'm sorry, but there is a bit of an age limit, and, thanks so much, but, we can't really take your donation." And he shuffled back to his seat, and then he came back up to the counter and he said, "Well, how about a donation for the Red Cross bushfire appeal?" And he had $5, and he gave $5. And there's just so many stories just like that when you add up all those ones, that is what made a difference to the Tasmanian community. That's the one post that got me teary during the bushfires, and the one post that still gets me. Another one that was an absolute favourite of mine is the police officer down at Denali got this handwritten letter from a woman in Queensland, in a small suburb in Queensland. And the letter said, "We lost our house when we were kids, and I feel the pain of the kids that are in Tasmania, and we would like to help. Do you know of a family that would love an all expenses paid holiday, come and stay with us for 2 weeks? They don't have to think about it. They get away from the area just for a little while." And I thought, oh gosh, that's amazing, but I don't think anyone's going to, how am I going to find a family like this? But I put it up on the page anyway saying, is anyone interested in something like this? And you've seen the photos of the family under the jetty? That family went on that holiday. 2 weeks, all expenses paid, flights, they were treated like royalty. And speaking to them afterwards, they just said just being able to get away from it. They wanted to come back, they wanted to be a part of their community again, but for their kids' mental health and their recovery, to be able to do that was absolutely extraordinary. That one letter that eventually made its way to me, made its way on the page, and that's how that all happened. The last one is the title of my talk. I called it a generator on a skateboard, the power of one. This happened on the very first night of the fires. There was this local fisherman called Patrick who said to me, I'm going to Margate, one of the local jetties, and I'm not leaving until my boat is full of donations. I'm not leaving. And it got to midnight, and then it got to 1 a.m, and then it got to 2 a.m, and he was still sending me texts saying, nope, it's not quite full yet, I'm not leaving yet. And so I kept putting posts up saying, these are the things we need, this is where Patrick's going, if you have anything you can donate, please head down there now. And then I got this wonderful text message from him saying, the most extraordinary things just happened. I've just had 2 little old ladies come down with a generator on a skateboard. They've wheeled it from their house. They've bought 1 carton of milk and 1 loaf of bread and 1 generator on a skateboard. And he said, yep, I'm done. My boat is now full and off I will go. So I feel like I could talk for so long about all this, and it was really a privilege for me to be able to sit and analyse and look back over the posts well after the fact. There's just so many stories, and I think this happens in every emergency, and Facebook was able to expose the wonderful efforts of the community that would otherwise go unnoticed. So I feel like I have a responsibility to get those people's stories out there. As far as what's happening next for me, a couple of months after the bushfire, I recognised that really wanted to get a website that was up and running. Some lady called Linda in Melbourne had set me up a temporary website during the fires, so we built on that and created this website. So it's a combination of official and unofficial information, lots of social media stuff, connections back to the Tasmanian Fire Service website. So that website is ready to go. I've got a team of people that can populate that information for me. So I feel like we're a little bit better prepared for next time. I'm doing a lot of talks like this. Most of the time it is for emergency management agencies and government to talk about how to work with the community better during a disaster. But often it's just getting these wonderful opportunities to just tell the story of the community to other people that do similar sort of service in their community. So that's really it. I just wanted to put across that message of the power of one, and putting across the message, as you guys would all be aware, that it really doesn't take much. One idea can make such a massive difference. Thank you.